Well, here we are, gentlemen. Week 9 of the drive to Dayton, the season finale. I know it's just kind of like any of your favorite TV series, Netflix series. When it's the season finale, you shed a little bit of a tear. Um, but hopefully, God willing, we'll be back better than ever next year doing this again.
And you guys will get to see Roth on the Goonies remake. So
Oh man. So it's just man, it's hard to believe, guys, how quickly we say it every week, how quickly this tournament goes by. And I was sitting there thinking, after that Lutheran West CJ game on Friday, I was like, man, still got 11 more of these to go. Before you know it, you're driving it home on Sunday night. Some of us were driving it home, shedding tears. Others were really happy. But man, it was there were so many parts of the state tournament this year, guys, that were just really, really good. Obviously, there's always going to be a few low moments, with a blowout here and there, but which you're not going to get 12 great games. But we saw a lot of great games. We saw a lot of talent. So many, like, I can't remember like two games that came down to like having to look at a review for to see if the shot was off. Games ending at the buzzer. Lutheran West, both games ending very similar. Both times with one of the twins. Matt Myers was good. Josh Myers not good. And that ended up being the difference in the game for them in both of those games. But incredible weekend, guys. College basketball was rolling, so trying to keep up with that as well. But you guys recover yet?
oh man, yesterday was like just a major decompression day for me. I had to go to school like I'm sure you did, Stubbs. Monday morning. Got back and I didn't do a single thing yesterday. So starting to finally feel like myself today, and yeah, excited to kind of talk about this. This was I thought, a pretty interesting tournament. I had low expectations going in, and I was actually pretty pleasantly surprised by how competitive a lot of the divisions were, especially Division One. That way, we'll get to that. But yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I spent yesterday going over some of my personal all-state teams for every division and getting those out. So I posted Divisions 3 and Division 4 on Tuesday, today that we're recording. And then tomorrow I'm going to post my Division 1 and Division 2 teams, 5 players per team, 25 players per division.
Yeah, those are tough. Those all-state teams are tough. A buddy of mine texted me yesterday morning and was like, give me your top 5 players at the state tournament. And I responded with performers or just players in general. And he wanted to know players. And I had a really hard time. Like, I had 6, and I was like, man, I can't cut any of these guys.
So he was talking about like the 5 best like prospects, like the 5 most talented guys there, or the 5 guys that played like the best.
More, just the 5 probably most talented guys there, as far like, and it worked out well because like all the guys that I came up with all played really well. I mean, when you look at Cups, Swain, Royal, Dorian Jones. Who else did I have? I had 2 other guys.
Was it Colin White and George Washington?
Colin White and George Washington. Probably the only one of those 6. I didn't think George played great in the game against Lutheran West. I mean, he had some moments, but I didn't think he played great. A couple of those guys, like you look at Colin White, Royal, and Dorian Jones, they both had 2 opportunities, but the other guys, got Swain and George, they only got a game, and Cups only got a game in. But I
I
thought
would
those
say,
were my 6 guys.
I would say Powell has to be in that group. I mean, he wasn't particularly, great on Saturday, but I mean, when you talk about the 5 most talented guys that I think played in the state tournament, I think he's undoubtedly, one of the 5. And then I don't even think you mentioned Jesse McCullough or TJ Cole. I mean,
Right.
that's a tough conversation. Getting that list down to 5. I think ultimately it would come down to which 5 guys would I take to go win a game with. And that's, just kind of splitting hairs, and that's kind of more of a preference thing at that point.
So let's look at this in terms of days here. So on Friday, I'll list the games here. We had Lutheran West beating CJ 56-54, Akron Brookdale 60, Bishop Reedy, who came into this undefeated, 50. Convoy Crestview 69, Highland 63. That was a game that final score probably finished a little bit closer than that second half was actually played. Convoy kind of controlled that. And then this was another one where I thought the final score was not really indicative of how competitive the game was. Richmond Heights 66, Russia 51. This was a game, guys, that Russia led with 27 seconds to go in the third, 38-36. And TJ, I know you mentioned this. The biggest turnaround in this game was at the end of that quarter. Winters hits a 3, they get a steal, and Jones gets the dunk. And it's 41-38 at the end of 3, and then Richmond Heights kind of controlled that fourth quarter. But it's just, going back and thinking about that, and I'm like, dang, Russia was up with 27 seconds to go in the third.
That game was really competitive for about 3.5 quarters. It's almost scary how explosive Richmond Heights can be. And they flip that switch at almost like whenever they want, and they can rattle off a good 6 to 9 points in a matter of a minute and 10 seconds. So I think that's what they did. I thought that the Russia crowd and the Ottawa Glandorf crowd, I thought that was so fun to see, man. Like when you get communities that just show up like that, it makes it feel like the state tournament. Oftentimes, those games, sometimes they can feel like a district or a regional, but like when you get crowds like that, man, that's when it really starts to feel like, all right, it gives you that big game feel.
Yeah, Russia was definitely feeding off that crowd. But you look at Richmond Heights, and when you have a bunch of talented guys like they do, and then you throw on top of it, they're unselfish. They shoot it really well behind the 3-point line. Obviously, they're long and athletic. They get in the passing lanes, and you just start throwing the ball around, and it's like before you know it, you're like, oh, man, we're down 15, and they just keep coming. Like there's just it's just relentless. But, TJ, you kind of answered your own question a few weeks ago, though, with Russia. I remember you saying, like, you caught a little bit of them at that Fort Laramie event, and you talked about how they had a bunch of guys. Like, to me, they were running 8-9 guys in and out of the game, which is not typical of a school with 54 boys in it. And all their parts were interchangeable. All their guys could handle the ball. Eventually you're going to wear down against that kind of pressure, but I thought they did a great job. Guys coming off the bench handling the ball. They were strong with it. Several guys that you mentioned this earlier in the year could make plays for them. And that's the kind of lineup you have to have against Richmond Heights to even have a chance. Everybody's got to be able to handle the ball and be strong with it.
No question. And this is no disrespect to the juniors and, seniors that started for Russia, but there were a few kids off the bench that I believe were sophomores that I was really intrigued by just physically. There was a kid, I believe his name, don't quote me on this, his name was like Ben York. He was like a 6'3" sophomore, really long arms, this good physical profile. There were a few other kids that just kind of looked the part, and they didn't look rattled. They were composed versus pressure. For the majority of the game, and that's a team that I honestly think you're going to see. You're going to see again next year. Back down in Dayton, they returned 4 out of their 5 starters. I see no reason why that team's not the heavy favorite in Southwest Ohio as long as they stay Division 4, which I'm assuming they will.
Yeah, you were right, TJ. Ben York, a kid that came off the bench. Felix Francis was another kid that came off the bench, and then Vince Borchers was another kid that came off the bench for them. All 3 of those guys could have very easily started for that team. And that's nothing. Those starters were good. I mean, they were solid guys. But credit Richmond Heights. I mean, they just wear you down. One of the stats, Roth, that I saw in this game that kind of stood out was, Russia out rebounded Richmond Heights 30-18 in this game. But,
wow.
But the 22 turnovers by Russia, and most of these came like probably in that late half of the third, fourth quarter. 29-4 points off turnovers and 25-7 fast break points, and that kind of, was your story. But Russia out rebounding them 30-18 was pretty impressive. But I mean, Jose Steele, I think, getting in foul trouble early for them. I think that kind of flipped the game a little bit because he does a lot of things for them.
And Richmond Heights isn't very deep either. I mean, you're looking at a team that plays six guys, maybe 7. I know they had a senior Roth that I don't know if you've seen him very much, but he was kind of like a defensive specialist for them. Took a couple charges. I think he made a 3. And then they bring the one kid, I believe, was a number 4, number 0, last name maybe Salters Jr. off the bench.
Yep.
Yeah, Salters had a good game against Hilliard Bradley, I think, when we watched him down in Columbus.
Yeah, we saw him. So yeah, they play 5 guys with 6 guys, 1 guy off the bench, and then like I said, the senior who came back, I forget his name. There was another. I'm pretty sure
McWilliams plays a little bit. Michael McWilliams.
That's maybe who I'm thinking of. He's listed as a junior.
Yeah, he plays a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, God, you're looking at a team that only plays primarily 6 dudes and 1 gets in foul trouble. I mean, that's definitely going to change the course of the game, especially with it being Jose Steele. I mean, that kid is an absolute animal, especially like on the offensive glass. Like his motor is unbelievable. Yeah. Even back when he was at Cleveland Heights last year.
And they become kind of undersized with that Steele. They become a lot of guards.
For sure.
The other game, obviously, Lutheran West, Dayton CJ. I think I was telling you, TJ, on Friday. This is one of those games where, like, when you watch it, I felt like CJ was the better team. Not that matters one bit. Like, Lutheran West wins the game, but I just kind of felt like throughout the game, like CJ was the better team most of the game. Lutheran West just would not go away. I mean, even when Jason Levis fouled out, I thought they were done. I thought they were dead in the water at that point. Levis was great in that game. 20 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I think Lutheran West, it said they only led for 4 minutes and 26 seconds.
Yep.
And, obviously that means that CJ led for 24 minutes and 16 seconds, which is just like...
It's good math.
Yeah.
Matt Meyer, I thought was, especially in the second half, was pretty good in this one. 16 points, 8 rebounds. GW3, as Roth called him, El Presidente, was only 6 of 15 from the field in this one. In that last second 3 there, I thought that was in from where I was sitting, but
it was like Christian Laettner-esque, it was pretty much how it was. I mean, credit to George for being able to catch it, get squared. I mean, that thing was dead on. I mean, it hit the back of the rim. I want to give a shout out to Lutheran West Jr. His first name is Junior as well, but Junior Kambamba. I mean, I thought he did about as well on George
Yep.
as anybody I've seen all year.
Yep.
6'3", 6'4", he's long, he's strong, he can move his feet, he's got some pop off the ground. So when you got an athlete like that on you, and then Duke sending another guy at you pretty much anytime you put it on the ground, I thought they did a good job of forcing George into really, really tough shots. And I feel like sometimes he has a tendency to take tough shots as it is. And I thought Luther and West even did a good job to make those even a bit tougher than they usually were.
I think before we move on to Saturday, gotta mention Buchtel's win over Reedy, just for the fact Reedy came into this game 28-0. Interesting here, Reedy is 8 of 15 from 3 in this game. A lot of that on the back of Charlie Russell, who hadn't missed a shot till a 3-pointer till the fourth quarter. I think he got a shot blocked or tipped in the fourth quarter. But the real story here is Buchtel 40-18 in the paint, 20-6 off turnovers, and 22-2 on fast break points. They just keep attacking and attacking and attacking. They had 4 in double figures in this game, and I think both of you probably have mentioned this at some point in the last couple of days. Reedy played some good teams this year. I don't think they saw anyone quite like Buchtel. The amount of pressure that they put on you.
I would say the only team, I think even Roth brought this up, was the only team you could probably throw in that, in that hat would be a Dayton Dunbar. That would probably be the extent of it. But, even though Dayton Dunbar is probably just as athletic as Buchtel, if not more athletic, I don't think they quite get after it the same way that Buchtel does defensively, especially like on the ball. I mean, you look at like MJ Boyce.
Oh, it's relentless.
God, I mean, just harassing guys. And I
even
think,
like the Jaden Maxwell kid too. Really good defender.
I think what you said, Stubbs, was like it was a common theme of the whole weekend. You tweeted that one thing you learned about the state tournament was you have to be able to handle pressure and handle it for 32 minutes. And I thought the Reedy Buchtel game was the epitome of that.
Yeah, I felt Reedy came into this game. Luke Ruth had suffered a high ankle sprain. I think in the regional semis, maybe. And then first quarter, Schaefer, you got to give it to. You could tell he was in serious pain.
He couldn't
trying to run up and down the court. But that's part of the game. I think Buchtel, as we found out on Sunday, they talk about it all the time, and in NCAA, you got to have guards to win in March, and I loved Buchtel's guards, just the way they played, just ferocious, just attacking at all times, and
I thought Marcel Boyce, you look at Buchtel, right? They got Coy Thurman, Division I commit, Amir Robinson, Division I commit, Steve Diamond, who's I believe their quarterback, really good dual sport athlete. But, I mean, MJ Boyce, in my opinion, was their best player over the course of the entire weekend. Thought he made the timely plays. Thought he made the winning plays. He scored it when he needed to. Defensively, he was really good. And he had a run like that the whole postseason. He scored 20-plus against Gilmore Academy when they beat them. He had another 20-point game against Youngstown Cheney. I mean, that kid was something switched when the postseason started. And, he kind of kicked it up a notch.
I want to mention this guy real quick because we probably won't have much to say when it comes to the state championship game. But Convoy Crestview's win over Highland, I thought Ren Sheets, sophomore, was really good in that game. And then a stat that jumped out to me in this game, other than like the big third quarter, I think it was like 25-7. Convoy blew that game open. Convoy made 30 free throws in this game and attempted 41. So that's a lot of fouls.
Yeah, 26-7 in the third quarter.
And Schleybaugh obviously was not happy about that, and he got the technical in the third quarter, and frustrations obviously can get to you. That technical, I'm not going to say whether that was what caused that big run in the third quarter by Convoy, but that is definitely what happened after the technical.
Yeah, it
But
swung some momentum, that's for
he,
sure.
he was, I mean, he was clearly frustrated.
Yeah, I mean, in the play that kind of sent him over the top was the Detweiler kid went for a pull-up jumper, and I mean, he got absolutely
How about,
hammered.
how about his
I mean,
comment in the
yeah,
presser?
I'm sitting right there. I mean, he gets hit like right on the elbow, middle of the shot. I mean, airballs it by 4 feet. You know, he's probably the best shooter in that game.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a clear foul, and I think everything that led up to that just kind of, sent them over the top. And
Schleybaugh was like, yeah, the best shooter in the game shoots or shoots a shot that goes 4 feet short.
yeah, I mean, it was clearly a foul from where I was at.
All right, so on Saturday, I got to get my days right here because I'm always so used to Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
I even tweeted out I don't know if you guys saw that, but after the games on Saturday night, I tweeted out like a lineup of the 4 state championship games, what time they were, who was playing, and I even put championship Saturday schedule.
Yeah,
and I mean my mentions were just immediately flooded. Like, what? They're next weekend? Like, so I'm used to the old school way as well. So
listen, Twitter is the one place on earth that if you make an error, you will quickly find out that you made an error.
And guys, I want to just clear the air on this, just because I'm so sick of like people in my comments texting me asking why the tournament is no longer in Columbus. Columbus is the reason why the tournament is not in Columbus.
Thank you.
Ohio State raised the rent on the OHSAA, more or less like a bad landlord, forcing them out, right? Kicking your tenants out by raising the rent. St. John's Arena, for those who ask about St. John's, is now converted into a spacious weight room because of COVID. They wanted to have a big weight room where they could spread everything out. Also, St. John Arena cannot even host a tournament right now. It needs new scoreboards. It needs a ton of renovation. There's been no money, no updates into St. John's Arena. Columbus, as of now, is not an option. Thursday through Saturday is not an option because of the Dayton first 4 games that take place on Tuesday and Wednesday. The University of Dayton wanted a day in between for logistics and just a way to, I guess, kind of get their ducks in a row before taking on another, big event. So hopefully that answers a lot of questions as to why we don't do Thursday through Saturday, why we are not in Columbus. Please stay out of my mentions with those questions.
I also think that 90% of the people who want it in Columbus over Dayton are closer to Columbus than Dayton. Like, I've never seen anybody from Cincinnati be like, oh, I hate going to Dayton. Like, obviously, it's all personal bias for yourself. Like,
yeah. And I mean, I get it, though. I mean, a 8:30 p.m. game on a Sunday night, potentially 2-3 hours away. I mean, that's not ideal for a lot of people, but unfortunately, it's what we got right now. And I saw some people mention the idea of potentially changing around the order of the games, and not having Division I go last. But somebody's got to bite the bullet. I think the reason why they have the Division I game last, obviously, because it's typically a game that people want to see. Not so much this year, but it keeps people around. Because I feel like you put that Division I game second or third, you get a lot of the casual fans maybe take off early. So.
Yeah. I think you hit a lot of the points there. Another venue I heard mentioned is obviously Nationwide Arena, but I mean, my goodness, they cannot afford the rent that they would charge them there. Like, ultimately, guys, I mean, people a lot of times are just ignorant to things in general. You have to make some money to be able to put these things on. So you can't price yourself out and put yourself in the hole just so you can get the thing back to Columbus. Do the right thing.
Especially making money in football and boys basketball, because I think we mentioned like last episode, that they probably lose money on like renting out the soccer ones and
yeah.
like softball and baseball.
Absolutely, they need to recoup some of that somehow, and by paying an extraordinarily high rent for a tournament that's probably your third. I would say the boys basketball tournament is probably the third highest grossing event, right behind football, obviously number one, wrestling being number two.
Yep.
So it's like, I understand why the OHSA is not going to go above and beyond for their third, best tournament.
Yeah, when you say do the right thing, move it back to Columbus, it's kind of like, it's like, you have that girlfriend in high school. Like, yeah, look, if she doesn't want to date you, it doesn't, like, you can't force the relationship here. You got to have two to tango. And Columbus, at Ohio State in general, does not at this point. I mean, they don't want it. I mean, that's it. And if I could take 30 seconds here for another rant,
Although we're just letting it out,
yeah,
man. Like,
listen.
You can lay on the couch and kick the feet up.
Listen, I love every one of you. But here's the deal. Stop talking about the attendance. It is what it is, guys. This isn't, I'm sorry, times have changed, and that's okay. This isn't 1985. This isn't LeBron James where you're going to put 20,000 in the seats. Like, that's never going to, 15, I mean, unless you get some kind of like transcendent talent, which those guys come around every 20, 25 years, you're not getting 15,000, 16,000. Times have changed. You have social media. People can follow these games on Twitter and not leave their couch and watch NCAA tournament at the same time. You can stream games online. The championship games are on TV. There's just so many more ways to stay up to date with this stuff without ever having to leave your couch. So again, this isn't 1985. I love 1985. I love history of the game. I love it. I love romanticizing the past. But guys, stop it with the attendance. You're trying to fix a problem that can't be fixed. It's not going to happen. It just is not going to happen. You got to get used to the new normal of 5,000, 4,500. That's what it's going to be. And here's what I say to close. If you like something, why do you care if Billy from Bolivar is at the game? You're there. You like it. So it's great. Why do you care who's there? Rant over. Rant over. Let's move on. All right.
Can you imagine if there's a Billy from Bolivar actually listening?
I hope he DMs me.
You talking about me?
Yeah.
Me?
Day 2, Saturday, got off probably the best game. One of the best games of the tournament. OG 48-47, double overtime. And I don't know if it was like the basketball that was great about this game or if it was just the crowd, the grit, determination, the competitiveness, like the will to want to win. I mean, because let's be honest, I think there was like very few points scored in the two overtimes in this game.
I think this is a way of saying it. I think you were kind of getting there. I think OG Afrocentric was the most competitive game of the weekend, whereas Pick Central Centerville was the best game of the weekend.
Perfect. Yeah,
I think that's kind of the way my brain kind of put it together. Because, I mean, Pick Central Centerville, I mean, that was just, from the shot making to the coaching to the defense to the ball movement. I mean, the star players looked like star players. I mean, it was just, I thought, through and through a really high-level game. And that's not taking anything away from OG and Afrocentric because that was a lot of fun as well. So.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier. I thought OG's crowd was really good, and you can just sense it, like when Colin gets a dunk or they make a big play, and that crowd gets into it, and you can just see Colin's like veins are popping out of his neck, and and Tyler or Tyson's, doing this, and I saw him doing this. Get the crowd, keep it going. And you,
yeah, before I forget, Stubbs, a good friend of mine, Anthony Jones, who is the athletic director, aka also assistant coach at Lutheran East.
I'm well aware. I'm well aware.
Yeah, so he didn't like how you switched up on him, man. He said he was following the episodes all tournament long. You picked Lutheran East to win it, and then when I did my media poll, you switched up and you went with Afrocentric. He said he took that personally. MJ boys.
Well, I'll get back to Anthony here after the break. Welcome back to the season finale of the drive to Dayton. Mr. Petros was just telling me about chatting with assistant coach / athletic director Anthony Jones. I believe Anthony was the coach in 2017 when they won it, correct? The head coach?
He was.
Well, okay, Anthony. Now listen, he's always a great sport. Always shakes my hand, tells me, hey, there's my guy. I know, he knows in the back of his mind what he wanted to say to me. Second, this has nothing to do with what I'm going to respond to, but when I was doing the program for the Fly Into the Hoop, I'll tell you what, that dude, man, anytime I had a question, he got back to me immediately with what I needed.
Super helpful,
yeah,
always.
Yeah, and his stuff was on point. Like, if I needed stats, if I needed any updated record information, whatever, he was all over it. And that stuff can't be appreciated enough. I've been doing this long enough, you guys as well. Like, you don't take that stuff for granted when people get back to you, have thorough, accurate information. Man, I can't say thanks enough for that stuff.
Andy gets them in every event under the sun, so
yeah.
me and TJ happen to watch him 8 times a season, it feels like.
It's kind of relating to what you said, Stubbs. AAU season is around the corner. It seems like clockwork a lot of times. I see high school coaches, high school fans love to go out of their way to blast AAU. But based on my experience, AAU coaches usually have a much better track record with getting to you with rosters, schedule, stats, whatever it is, than a lot of these high school coaches do. I will say that. So, quick rant over.
As far as, man, I think I switched 3 times. Because I started the tournament with Lutheran East.
Then I think you went to OG.
Yeah, I think I still had Lutheran East heading into the district. And then right after the district, I took OG. And then I don't know what made me flip. I think it was maybe the OG double overtime game with Wayne Trace. Then I saw Afrocentric live recently at the Convo.
Prisoner of the moment.
I was. I should have just, after seeing those, clearly Lutheran East was the best team. They got really good guard play. They have tremendous size on the interior. They have pretty decent depth for a Division III school. I thought they played extremely well, and they were clearly the best team in Division III. There's no
I thought their role players on Sunday were phenomenal.
Yeah.
Chauncey Brashers and Anthony Bruce and Ronald Taylor. All 3 of those guys are juniors. All 3 will be back next year. I thought that was a huge confidence boost for those guys heading into a season where their number is going to get called a lot more than it was this year. So I believe they shot 47% from 3. 8 of 17, something along those lines. I thought they executed. We talked about OG's crowd earlier. I don't think Lutheran East allowed OG's crowd to get involved. Anytime OG would make a big basket, Lutheran East would counter it, usually with a 3. They never had, I think it took until the 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter for them to have a sequence where they scored back to back without Lutheran East scoring. So I mean, it was just a phenomenal, job of executing and, guys stepping up in their roles for Lutheran East.
Yeah, taking a step back, they played game 6 of the weekend against Harvest Prep. Harvest Prep had a tough break with really the only guy they have with size. Nael Shahid did not play for personal reasons in this game. I don't know if it was game 6 and it was like the halfway point, but I was just kind of sleepy through this game. It was just a game I never really felt like. I know Harvest Prep got off to a pretty decent start in this game. Brandon Roddy, I think, had 10 points pretty quick in this game.
Scored their first 10.
Yeah, I just never felt like Lutheran East was not going to win this game.
No, I didn't either. I know me and Ralph saw Harvest Prep early in the year. I think it might have been their first game of the season against Cincinnati Taft. And, I mean, the first half of that game against Taft, they shot the absolute lights out. I mean, Adonis Abrams made some. Nael Shahid made a couple. Brandon Roddy even hit a couple. A few kids I didn't even know their names hit a couple. So I was thinking to myself, man, if they can have a similar shooting performance to that, maybe they have a puncher's chance, but ultimately, talent just kind of won out in that one. And losing Shahid was the difference maker as well.
Yeah, it's hard to beat Lutheran East at full strength, but when you're down, a guy that's your leading scorer and your leading rebounder against a team with, that much size, and, Crumble really feasted in there on Saturday. And I got to hand it to Coach Dennis and that staff, man. After seeing them, they're a good team, but the fact that they went down south to the southwest and beat Tri-Village and then beat Preble Shawnee, who was red hot as well, with a really, really talented scorer in Mason Shrout. I think he still had like 27 in that game, but for them to go down there and kind of, have to, that's not hard. That's not easy for those Columbus teams to go down that way and win. They rarely ever do come out of there. So that's a big kudos to Coach Dennis and his staff for being able to pull that off.
Neither game was all that close either. I think they won both of them by double digits.
Yeah, both games I think were very similar where, Harvest Prep got a lead in the both games the other team came kind of trying to scrambling back. I know Tri-Village got off to a really slow start in that game, and I think they ended up losing by 9. But yeah, you're right, Roth. They controlled both of those games down there. So, all right, let's get to Division 1. Saturday night, 5:15. Everybody had this game circled on their card. And as I was saying to several people this weekend, when you build some of these games, or not some, most, when you build a game up and have high expectations, it rarely ever lives up to the hype. And this one I thought exceeded the hype and the expectations. I didn't really, probably because I was shooting my mouth off for the next couple hours, I didn't really go back and kind of look at the overall body of work of this game. When you look at this game, I mean, Centerville shot 61% from the field in this game and lost. Pick Central, I thought they did what they do. This is when they're at their best. They took 8 threes, they made 4 of them. They shot a pretty high percentage. I think they were around 54% from the field. They were 11 of 14 at the line. Royal, 23 points, 9 of 14 shooting. But Jawan Turner was unbelievable in this game. He was 4 of 4 from 3, ended up with 16 points. But above all of that, the fact that he handles the ball the majority of the time for them against really, really good pressure and does not turn the ball over is just, you kind of take that for granted. That he does that for you, and that's on top of the 16 points that he had in the game. Gabe
didn't even turn it over. It's 0 turnovers.
0 turnovers. And if you go back and look at the percentage of that game that he had the ball in his hands and the fact that he had 0 turnovers, I mean, it wasn't like they were playing the Sisters of the Poor here. Cups ended up with 22, 7 of 9 shooting, but I think the biggest key in this game was no one else was in double figures. And after talking to those guys after the game, I think, I can say pretty confidently that was the game plan, was to take Powell away. And, they knew Cups was going to create and get points. But if they could take Powell away, they felt pretty good that they could win that game. And they ended up doing that.
I was talking to somebody, as soon as that game was over, and I was telling them basically, like, watching last year's Centerville team, versus this year and even the year before, it was just such a clear difference at how much Gabe Cups had to do for this year's group in order for them to be successful against good teams versus what he had to do last year and the year before. I thought that was the big difference. And when you look at their roster, they don't necessarily have another guy that can really create for anybody else. And then I look at Colin O'Connor, who's a really good player, junior. He transferred in from Tecumseh. I believe he was like player of the year in their county last year.
Yeah, he's a senior this year too.
What did I say, junior?
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, definitely a senior. I mean, he only played 16 minutes of the game. So, you factor that in to the fact that, Powell didn't necessarily have a big scoring night either. It makes sense.
Yeah, you had Emmanuel Dang hitting a couple shots. That was big, but Pick Central did a lot better defending Tommy, who had a big game in the regular season meeting.
Tommy.
Wow. And if the box score is right, so like you said, Tommy in that first matchup had like a 14 point, 16 rebound, double-double. I mean, he was, he had an outer body experience back in December. He had 0 rebounds against Pick Central. So going from, 16 rebounds, 7 or 8 of them being offensive to not having, tallied a single rebound in 15 minutes that's phenomenal.
Yeah, just like I said, very rarely do these games live up to the billing. This one exceeded it. I think we were all pretty – I think everybody was pretty happy, if you were a neutral fan of what you got to see on Saturday night inside UD Arena.
And it lived up to it 3 times.
Yep.
These teams have played 3 times in a calendar year, and all 3 games have been borderline classic games. That's pretty hard to do.
People forget, I'm sure you guys don't, but the COVID year, Pick Central and Centerville picked up a game in the middle of the week. The year that Centerville won the state title in 2021. They picked up a game like in the middle of the week. And you know how that was happening that year. You'd lose a team. They had too many guys out. Well, Central and Centerville picked each other up middle of the week, and that was a really good game as well. People forget about that one, but that Centerville ends up going on to win.
Morrow did not forget about that game. Morrow citing Gabe Cupp's 2-2 record against Pick Central. He did not forget about that one.
Yeah, that Centerville team back in 2021.
Yep.
That team was fun to watch, man, because I watched them in the beginning of the year get absolutely drilled by Moeller. Absolutely drilled. Like, game wasn't competitive at all. Turn around and, beating them in the regional final or regional semi or whatever that was.
Yep.
That team was young and made just a drastic, turnaround over the course of 2 months.
All right, the final game on Saturday, the final semifinal game, featured Hoban and Toledo St. John's Jesuit. And I will be the first to apologize here. I was just haphazardly watching this game. I wasn't locked in.
You were too busy drinking champagne.
Yeah, I was I watched early and I was from a Pick Central point of view, I was thinking, you know, all things considered, feeling pretty good. I mean, but there's always the other factors that we'll talk about here in a little bit with that championship game. But Hoban never really was in doubt in this game. It ended up 49-36. They had a bigger lead than that.
They biggest lead was 23. They were up 23 with 41 seconds left in the third. They were up 14 at halftime. It was. And it never felt like it was really within reach for St. John. CJ Hornbeek, who was absolutely phenomenal throughout the course of the season and the postseason, went, just 4 of 19 from the field. When your best player and, legitimately like one of your only guys that can really create and score it does that, it's going to be tough. I think they shot like sub 30% from the field for the game. It just wasn't a pretty game really on either side. So, yeah, I was kind of in and out of it as well. I was kind of upset about my alma mater losing in the national championship game. Mount Union, go Purple Raiders. Absolutely brutal calls for them down the stretch, by the way. That's a different conversation for a different day.
How about the job that Mike did with this Toledo St. John's team to get that team to the state?
It was me and Mike watched them against Findlay, right? CJ Hornbeek pull up 3 at the buzzer to send Findlay home. And then the second game of the doubleheader was Toledo Whitmer against Toledo Start. And we watched Whitmer just dismantle Start in a game that I thought was going to be somewhat competitive. It ended up not being very competitive at all. I left that day when I'm driving back home thinking that Whitmer is like the heavy favorite, to win the district final against St. John. They split during the regular season. The second game, I believe, was close. One of the games, I think Whitmer won by double digits. So I'm thinking, hey, Whitmer's going to win the district final. Boom. St. John beats them. And then they move on to play Perrysburg in the regional semis. And Perrysburg just coming off of nearly a 40-point win against Lima Senior. I'm like, yeah, there's no way Toledo St. John, pulls it off again. Boom, they beat Perrysburg. So then when they get to the Garfield Heights game, I'm like, hell, I'm not betting against these guys anymore. I'm texting one of my guys who coaches at Whitmer. Shout out to my guy, Verdell, great dude. So me and him are texting, and we're like, hey, anything can go with this game. And I thought that they would make it difficult for Sonny and those guys on the defensive end, just with how prepared they are and how physical they are. And sure enough, that's exactly, what they did. They did a great job of defending Marcus Johnson. I think Hornbeek was on him for the majority of the game, and they won. And it was just like, when it got to the Hoban game, I was, hey, I'm thinking to myself, Hoban's more talented. They got more pieces. But prior to the start of that game, I was very much thinking like, hey, this is a pick 'em, right? With the way the whole entire season has gone and the way St. John was playing. And, yeah, it was nuts. So shout out to them. That was a historic run.
All right, so we go to Championship Sunday. Any thoughts on Buchtel's 51-49 triumph of Lutheran West here?
I thought both teams kind of came out the gate a little shaky. Didn't look like either one of them were really in much of a rhythm. I think a lot of that had to do with Jason Levis getting 2 quick fouls. Coy Thurman picked up 2 quick fouls as well. But yeah, that was a fun game. And at halftime, I said to myself, like, hey, the team that makes the most plays in the final 2 minutes of this game is going to win it. So it just felt like one of those games that was just going to be competitive all the way down to the last second. And that's exactly what it was.
Yeah, it ended up being the best game of the day.
Yeah, it was.
The second game of the day, I'm not sure. Richmond Heights defeated Convoy Crestview. This game was tied at 16, and then a 50-6 run would ensue in this game, including a 29-0 third quarter. a 35-0 run in all in this one. I'm not sure. I don't really have anything here.
I mean, the fact that this was only a 9-point game at halftime is remarkable to me. So I believe it was either 16-16 or it might have been 17-16 after the media timeout, which was like 3:47 left. Richmond Heights comes out of the media timeout, goes on a quick run. They're up 12. And then Crestview hits this, half-court three at the buzzer. And, so it looked like going into halftime, hey, Crestview just took a hard punch from Richmond Heights. They took a big blow, and then they counter it with this half-court shot to swing some of the momentum back in their way. And then, oh, my God, that third quarter. I don't know if I've ever seen a third quarter like that in person between, like, two quality basketball teams. I mean, that was – I don't really know what to say, but 29-0. I don't think Crestview scored until about, like, 4 minutes or so in the fourth quarter. Yeah, I forget who it was. Guy on their team got like an and one, missed a free throw, and then the JV guys came in.
Yeah,
the JV guys scored the same amount of points as the varsity guys did.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean,
nuts.
I kept going, well, that's got to go in. That's got to go in, and they just would not fall. And then it was like, it was the snowball effect. Like, one turnover seemed like it led to three, and then they were in a constant scramble mode. And I will say that we've talked a lot about Richmond Heights, and rightfully so. They're super good. Guys, Convoy Crestview is a good basketball team. This is a team that beat Delphos St. John's, double overtime with Ottoville, and then beat a really good Marion local team in a regional finals to get here. And then, they beat Highland and their coach, Doug Etzler, former Ohio State Buckeye. They talked about wanting to get down there and play for a trophy, and they did. They just ran into I think it was Saturday night. I was on the OHSA radio at halftime of the Centerville game, and we were talking about Richmond Heights, and I said, what people forget is in that first game, they're young. They have 3 sophomores and 2 juniors starting, so there's nerves when you come down to the state and, you're playing in front of an enormous crowd with big stakes on the line. So I told that guy on the radio, I said, I think that they're going to play much better on Sunday, and that's scary. And they did. They played like they typically do on Sunday. The 11 threes, nearly 50% from 3. That's what they do. They turn you over, they get in the passing lanes, and the shooters get in position in transition, and you can't stop it.
And they do a great job in the half court too of drawing 2 guys, kicking it out. That ball is moving.
Yep.
They had a possession in the third quarter where every guy touched it. I mean, multiple times, and then before you know it, boom, Damaris Winters is hitting a wide open catch and shoot 3 at the top of the key. They play good basketball, talented or not, call it what you want to call it. They play a really good brand of ball.
100%. It starts, with an unselfish point guard. And Derek Barber, the engine there. So, again, great season for Convoy Crestview, a state runner-up. Richmond Heights, phenomenal year, undefeated, 29-0. Hard to go against that, spotless record. Division III, we thought, I know I talked to you guys before the game, we thought this could be really, really good. Lutheran East, Ottawa Glandorf, we know how tough they are, that even if they're, they were behind the 8 ball in terms of talent. I think that's pretty obvious. But we knew that they would fight. It's not in their DNA to roll over. We know that. But watching this game, I never really felt like Lutheran East was going to lose this game. I felt like they were in control the whole time. You hit the nail on the head earlier. I think the biggest point that could be made about this game is every time Ottawa Glandorf did something well, Lutheran East either equaled it or did something better at the other end, and it kept that crowd at bay all day long. And we know they feed off that crowd. And Lutheran East shut that crowd down every single time. And credit to Anthony Bruce, Brashers, Taylor, and we're not mentioning it. McCullough was in foul trouble most of the game. It was just one of those nights. Crumble, I thought, was good again. Cody Head was great all weekend. I don't want to not mention him. He was great all weekend. At the end of the day, Sam Liggins is the most in shape coach at the state tournament. There is no doubt about that.
Hey, and I don't know if you guys follow Sam at all on Instagram, but when I tell you he still got it, he still got it. I would take the Lou's coaching staff with Liggins and Tyree Gator probably against anybody in the state of Ohio. I will say Pick Central. I had no idea that Issa Ma was an assistant coach at Pick Central. That blew my mind when I noticed who that was out there. But yeah, he still got it, man. He puts those kids in the torture rack after practice, man. Every day of the week. I just see Sam hitting these off the dribble jumpers from like 6 feet out, and then he's flexing, and no, it's just funny, man. I think the culture that they built over there doesn't get nearly enough credit. They do a good job of, the kids have fun, the kids enjoy themselves. So yeah, shout out to them.
6 consecutive state tournaments, 3 state championships, quite a run for the school known as the Lou. That just keep it going, man. And they've got some more. They've got guys coming back, and we'll talk about that here in a bit. But they're not going anywhere. All right, we can skip the next game if you guys prefer.
For obvious reasons.
Let me just say my piece, and then I'll let you guys take the floor from a more neutral standpoint here.
Do we have enough time left on the Zoom for your piece, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is about 30 seconds. So I want to hear from you guys because you'll have a more accurate account. But as a certified homer, here's what I wrote down. I thought one of the biggest keys of this game, if you would have told Coach Griffith that Jonas Nichols had 2 points at the end of this game, and he knew nothing else, I would say he would probably tell you, and maybe I'm wrong, that they would have been in big trouble. I felt really, really good as a Central guy. If I'm a Central guy, I felt really, really good the way Nichols was taking a lot of early offense shots early in the game and was missing. And we did a good job of rebounding the ball early. And here's what I thought it came down to. I thought Hoban's role guys were fantastic. I thought they, like I said, I don't see them 25 times a year, but I thought those guys did what you do in a championship game. They played over their head. Val's was 5 of 7 from 3. I thought Andrew Griffith was phenomenal defensively, getting his hands on balls, tipping them out. And I haven't even mentioned Scott and Greer. I thought Greer did a great job of guarding Royal. Royal had a really hard time getting by him. Even when he did, their length with like Griffith and Val's, they were there like every single time shutting that lane down. And they forced Central to do, if I was coaching against Central, this is what I would do to beat them. I would force them to beat me from the perimeter. And if they do, so be it. Central was 3 of 16 from 3. Those were really the only shots that they could get were clean. They only shot 7 free throws. That's not good.
And a crazy stat, speaking of free throws, was Devin Royal was the only player on Pick Central to shoot a single free throw attempt.
Yeah.
I think that just kind of is the tail of the tape. I mean, that's tough.
So here's where the train goes off the tracks for me. I'm not an excuse guy. Kruger knows this as much as we talk. I do think Central was emotionally gassed. And
No question. I don't think that's an excuse at all.
and you
It was. I thought it was almost expected.
and what happens when you become emotionally and physically gassed? You start doing shortcutting things. So it's easy just to pull a 3-pointer or kind of play a little bit of one-on. I thought they played a little too much one-on-one and tried to do too much individually. And you can't do that against Hoban. They're so sound defensively. It just looked like a team that could never get any energy the whole night. They just looked flat the whole night. And no matter what they did, they just could not get that temperature up. And again, all the credit to Hoban. They were unbelievable on defense. Unbelievable.
That was probably the best help side defense
Yes.
that I have seen all year. I mean, you want to talk about Jonas Nichols, who went only 1 of 8 from the floor. I believe he was their leading scorer this year, either him or Scott. But when you look at that, I mean, then the kid had, not only he didn't have a great game offensively shooting the basketball, but he had 5 assists. I thought me and Roth were talking about how well he passed the ball in the second half. Had 4 steals. They did a great job of, when Royal got it, that guy's digging at him, coming over, guys jumping the passing lanes, rotating, recovering. I mean, it was phenomenal. Defensively, that was one of the better performances I've seen from a team over the course of the year. I even saw Babe Kwasniak say on Facebook that Andrew Griffith, who is the son of head coach TK Griffith, was one of the best help side defenders that he's seen all year. And I think that just says a lot about, what that team did. And I'm sure they probably felt disrespected coming into the game. They heard a lot of the talks about, hey, whoever wins Pick Central Centerville is going to win it all. And, guys were, the word repeat was getting thrown around a lot. And those guys clearly took offense to it. And I think Sam Greer especially took offense to it. So,
Roth, I'm going to give you the stage here because that's a great segue to what you said last week on this show.
Yeah, Hoban came out, and I think Hoban being able to keep the game tight while their 2 guards really struggled early was key. Vols just kept hitting every big shot, and it almost seemed like a domino effect in like the late 3rd, early 4th quarter. Once Hoban got that lead, they used defense to turn into offense, and they got a bunch of easy ones in transition. Will Scott made a couple plays in transition to help extend that lead, because it really quickly went from Hoban up by 2, Hoban up by 3, to Hoban up by 10, 12 points late in the 4th quarter. And that was when the game just all of a sudden went from being like a 50-50 toss-up to Hoban in complete control. And in a grinded-out game, Hoban defensively created the ability to push it in pace. And since they did all the little things earlier, right when they capitalized in transition, it was curtains for Pick Central.
Okay, I want to give Logan Vowles just a little more credit here. He's a kid who's played all 4 years at Hoban. I believe as a freshman, he led the state in 3-point percentage. He shot like nearly 50%, if not over 50% from 3 as a freshman. But I mean, you're talking about a guy 6 foot, 6'1", can't weigh more than, 140, 150 pounds. No disrespect, Logan. But I mean, the kid grabbed 5 offensive rebounds. I mean, that's huge. And a few of those were down the stretch. I want to say Hoban split the front end of a one-on-one right when Pick Central's making this comeback. And, I mean, he comes from damn near across the lane, tips the ball out, then goes and grabs it. I mean, he made just some big, big, big winning plays. And I'm not even talking about the shots that he hit. I'm talking about just his raw effort on both ends of the floor. You know, him, Andrew Griffith, I mean, and Jonas Nichols, like I mentioned before. Like, that was just a great collective effort from those guys. And like I said, if you would have told me that Jonas Nichols and Will Scott shot a combined 6 of 18 from the field, and that neither one of them would have scored until 3 minutes left in the second quarter, I would have thought they would have got ran out of the gym.
Yeah, I'll say one more thing, and then we'll move on to what we're going to finish the show with. I think you guys made great points. I felt like in my seat, the longer Pick Central let Hoban hang around, you could just see, you could feel the confidence growing that they could win that game. Every single time they came to a timeout, you could see their confidence was growing and growing every single stoppage of play, as the game was tied, or it was a 1-point game, or it was a 2-point game, whatever it be. Hoban, you could tell they were like, all right, I think we can do this. We can do this.
I was sitting there just almost waiting on Pick Central to flip the switch. Like, in the back of my brain, when I'm watching Hoban compete in the first half and the third quarter, I'm just like, these guys are about to turn it on any minute now. And then, like I said, when they went up 10 or 12, like Roth mentioned, I just remember I looked over at him. I looked over at Roth and I said, they're about to win this game.
Yep.
And it was the moment to me where that run that I was expecting the whole game, it just never came.
It was funny that you said that, because like a minute prior, I was like, man, they're really going to do it. And then like 2 or 4 points later, you said the same thing to me. And I was like, yeah, I thought that for like a couple minutes here now.
Yeah, it just took me a second to really comprehend it. But Stubbs, you think we probably should take probably should take a break, right?
Yep.
Just to cut the Zoom and then we'll come back.
Yep, we'll be right back.
All right, sounds good.
All right, we are back for the final segment of the season finale of the Drive to Dayton. It's been a great year. We were finishing up talking about the final game of the 2023 season, 22-23 season. Pick Central losing to Hoban. One final thought. Guys, this is why it is so difficult to repeat, and why there's so few teams that have done it, especially in the big school. They were trying to just become the 4th team to do it since, the 1971 season. So
yeah, I think me and Rock looked at it. I think it was Cincinnati Elder in the 70s, Canton McKinley in 04 to 06, and then Moeller from 2017 to 2019.
Yep. So 2 teams have had a chance at it. Central stopped it last year, and then Central had a chance this year, and Hoban stopped it. And, Sam Greer, I wanted to mention him real quick. Hey, listen, guys, that kid's something special. The way, that size, that demeanor, that composure, those feet, whew.
Can we talk about that heads-up play that he made to save the ball out of bounds?
Yes.
That was like...
How did he even get to that ball?
No idea. That was nuts to me. That was like the one play where I just was like, all right, this kid is like, as these days say, built different.
He had this grin on his face too after he's
got some expletive to him.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Yeah. So congratulations to Hoban, Coach Griffith. Well deserving. He's a really good basketball coach, and had some really good teams at Hoban. There's just you got to have in the tournament, man. It's so little margin for error, and all these great coaches with these, really good programs can go back over the years of games where they, could have went either way, and they could have been at the state tournament, and they just weren't because, they lose at the buzzer, or, a call didn't go their way. And, Hoban is well deserving of this championship. They went out and they earned it, and they took it. And that's what you do.
I don't think you can get a better, storybook ending. I've heard rumblings, whether or not they're credible. that Coach Griffith may have been his last season. So to
Hey,
win a state to win a state championship with your son as a senior, I mean, against the defending state champs, I mean, that sounds like a movie almost.
yeah, I'm not sure it gets much better than that. So,
I don't think so either.
all right, so gentlemen, this is how we're going to close the show. Let's preface: this is not considering or taking into account teams possibly changing divisions, which we know happens every year.
Or transfers, by the way.
And the transfer portal is now open for business. So, with all those things being said, and you guys have a lot of intel and a lot of information, why don't you guys give me whatever you have there as far as like TJ? Why don't you give me what you have?
Oh man, so like I said to you guys right before we started the show, as I was going through a lot of these teams, I think Ohio's going to be a little down. I think we're going to be young, and we're going to be talented, but a lot of those guys are going to be underclassmen. I think a lot of teams took big hits with this 2023 class. But as I look ahead to Division One, I'll kind of do it by region. In Southwest Ohio, I think, if everyone comes back, I think Centerville has a chance to still be really good. Two kids that people don't really get to see very often, the two Greenberg twins. I think they'll be huge next year as juniors. Jonathan Powell will be a senior. Boubacar Njai, who had some big flashes in the state championship game, he's back. I think Princeton, right, returning Dorian Williams, Jaden Arnold, a few of those other key role guys. You look at a Fairfield, while they do lose, a trio of seniors with, Ray Coney, Amir Rogers, Deshaun Krim. They bring back Gabe Clemens, Cam Sanders, a few other talented kids. Moeller, I think, is one to watch. They had a lot of sophomores and juniors that, I wasn't super familiar with. They played some minutes this year. AJ McBride, Kingston Land being two of the better long-term prospects in Ohio. I look at Northeast Ohio. St. Ignatius, in my opinion, and I hate to put this label on Cam, but they might be the heavy favorite in Division One next year, with all things considered. I think Garfield Heights, a team that beat them in the regional semis, might have something to say about that. I think they'll be really good, but I think they do lose some toughness in that 2023 class with Tommy Benn, Giles Brandon, Jermaine Marshall. They lose a lot of those really key role guys, I think, that help them win down the stretch. Go down to Central Ohio. I look at a Westerville North team that was, returns a ton of sophomores and juniors. Westerville South, they made an unexpected run. I think Cruz McClure for them was phenomenal as a sophomore. I think he's going to continue to make a jump. Reynoldsburg, I think, should be, without a doubt, one of the more talented teams, not only in Central Ohio, but in the state. I think they are a point guard away from being very, very, very good. Not going to say anything, but there are some murmurs going around that void may be being filled sooner rather than later. I look at a Hilliard Bradley, a team that returned three of their best players from this past year. In Northwest Ohio, I think it's a little slim. Perrysburg was a good team. They lose a lot. I think Sylvania Northview might be a sleeper to keep an eye on. Lima Senior, I heard, has two really talented eighth graders in the pipeline, so probably get a shot at playing varsity. They return, Jagger Hutchins, Jaquel Cotton, Amari Addy, who was their starting point guard as a freshman. I really liked him. So they should be good. I think Menor in Northeast Ohio, who was pretty underwhelming this year considering the expectations. They return a lot of guys. I think Ryan Iapolo is really the one key contributor they lose, but they bring a lot of other guys back. That's what I got for Division One.
Yeah, TJ, I liked a lot of the teams you mentioned. I think Toledo Whitmer still be pretty strong, even though they graduate a decent amount of seniors. And then a team that Matt Gould had in his top 10 was Brunswick. I think they're going to be able to score the ball almost as good as anybody in the state. So I liked liked a lot of your shouts, but that's just two more teams that I want to add.
Yeah, I would add maybe Delaware Hayes in there from Central Ohio.
Yeah, that's a good one as
Make
well.
sure they get a mention. All right, what about Division Two?
This was a little different for me. I didn't think it was quite as deep as Division One, whereas I thought this past year it was very deep when you throw in like the Lexingtons and the Sandusky's of the world. I think Lexington will still be competitive. They'll bring back Braden Fogel, Junior Elijah Hudson, who was very, very intriguing in the district tournament. Lutheran West, I think, has a chance to make it back down to Dayton and be a key player. Cincinnati Taft, while they do lose Hudson Norton, Ian Elmer, they do have some guys. And obviously, I'm assuming that there will be a couple guys coming in. Glenville, a team out of Northeast Ohio, they had a good run, beat CVCA. I think Coach Holt is actually retiring after this season, so not sure how that's going to go. Dayton Dunbar, they lose the Allen twins, but they bring in a talented transfer out of Dayton Northridge. They bring back Eric Brewer, who will be a senior, sophomore BJ Hatcher, who's one of the better guards in Ohio. And then I think Chaminade Julian, while losing Evan Dickey and George Washington III, hopefully they bring back BB Washington. They'll have Devin Rakestraw, a sophomore that I really like, a kid named David Cartwright, who's kind of more of a defensive specialist this year. I think he's going to take on a much larger role and kind of show the overall skill that he has. That's about really all I got for Division Two. I mean, maybe CVCA, if Peterson doesn't go the prep route, but yeah, it was kind of slim pickings for me as I was just looking over some of my notes.
I got a couple more teams. I think Toledo Central Catholic could be pretty good next year. They return a couple of their top guys. Holy Name had a really good start to the season.
There's a good amount of seniors, though, don't they, Holy Name?
I thought they had a couple younger pieces. I could be wrong.
I know Max Bowen's a sophomore, but I think they had a couple kids. One kid's like Pinheiro.
Yeah, Pinheiro's a senior.
He was a good player. I thought he scored a lot of points for them.
And then I also thought Cincinnati Woodward would be pretty good next year with Rue Mills as a senior. But you mentioned most of the heavy hitters.
How about Division Three, fellas?
I think you're going to see a lot of familiar names. I think Lutheran East, obviously, not much else needs to be said about them. Jesse McCullough comes back. Freshman TJ Crumble, showed some big flashes of talent this weekend. They had those trio of role guys this year who I think will take a jump with Brashers, Bruce, and Taylor. Ottawa Glandorf, they do lose the one kid, I forget his name. He was at the post-game presser, shooter, tough kid.
Oh, yeah. Stet Schulte.
Yeah. So, but they'll bring back Colin White. They'll bring back Erford. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce his name. 6'4" shooter. And they bring that crowd back. That community's not going anywhere anytime soon. I like Miami East. They were a team that I was actually shocked that didn't make it to Dayton. They had a phenomenal season. They returned their two-headed monster with Wes Enos and Jacob Roth. Preble Shawnee, a team that beat them, I think should be in the mix as well with Mason Shroud and big kid's name. Slipping my mind,
Logan Hawley.
Right, I think he's a kid who got his first taste of varsity basketball this year. He's going to make a big jump. Wayne Trace, who took Ottawa Glandorf down to the wire in the regional final. They returned their two guys. Junior guard Brooks Lockup is one of the better kids in Northwest Ohio. And then lastly, I want to finish with Harvest Prep, who they had a freshman who I thought was kind of intriguing, a kid that I wasn't familiar with before. Adonis Abrams will be back as a senior. Brandon Roddy will be back as a junior. They had a sophomore I saw in the beginning of the year who I thought was a talented kid. Didn't see him this past weekend, but they have some pieces. And I think they should be a player as well.
A couple teams that I'll add. If they bring everybody back, Emmanuel Christian will be very good next year. Yeah, another team Couple teams down in Southeast Ohio, I think, could be pretty good. Minford brings back their top 3 scorers, so they should be even better next season. South Point brings back a decent amount of their production and their best player. And also, this was a sub special earlier. Columbus Academy is another team to watch in Division 3.
Yeah, I remember you said they were all like freshmen and sophomores, right,
Yep.
Stubbs?
Yeah, really, really young, talented team. All right, last one here, Division 4. What do we got?
Richmond Heights, if they stay Division 4, kind of goes without saying. I think we've harped on them enough over the last 8 weeks.
Yep.
Marion Local, a team that will return both of their front court guys, a team that we kind of all expected to maybe be in Dayton this past year.
Mm-hmm.
Rushi, who we talked about, brings back 4 of their 5 guys. I expect to maybe see them again. Cornerstone Christian, I think, is a team that could step up if Richmond Heights happens to make that jump to Division 3. They have a sophomore duo with Turtle Kwasniak, Carter Armstrong. And Babe does, as good of a job as anybody. And then Northside Christian was, surprisingly good this year to a lot of people. And I'm pretty sure they bring back a good amount as well.
I would add Berlin Highland in there. I think
Yeah.
that most of their pieces are back, and you don't get rich betting against them coming out of Athens.
No.
Roth, did you have anybody to add in Division 4, or was that?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Antwerp as a team, bringing back their best guy. I think Lucas could be pretty good as well. They bring back the D4 co-player of the year. So those are 2 teams I wanted to shout out. Also, third one, Patrick Henry, I think will be very good next year. They had coach's kid was a freshman, and they had a sophomore guard who was good. And the Davy guys, shout out the 2 guys who run the Davy website in Northwest Ohio. They said that the sophomore guards, I forget his name, his little brother is an 8th grader and supposed to be very, very good. So I think Patrick Henry, they might be a year away next year from being able to compete for a state title, but they'll be in the running.
Great job, fellas. And remember,
You got one last buy or sell for us, Stubbs? Come on, man. We got to go out with a buy or sell.
Okay.
You got one.
Well, just remember this, guys. To the viewers,
Buy or sell. Northeast Ohio sweeps again in 2024. Buy.
I'm gonna sell that garbage.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Uh,
but I hope so. I hope I'm wrong.
yeah, and remember,
Ignatius, Lutheran West, Richmond Heights in D3, Cornerstone D4. Book it.
Yeah. Hey guys, Kurt Stubbs here. I just wanted to take this minute to say thank you to each and every one of you that took the time to listen to even a second of our show of the drive to Dayton. It was such a fantastic time each week to come together and just talk some high school basketball. Starting with players, coaches, administration, parents, family, friends, anybody that reached out during the season through through text, through DMs, through Twitter, coming up to us in person. Thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of our heart. I truly do mean it and appreciate it. I know Mike and TJ do as well. I hope that we're back next year, God willing, doing this bigger and better. Your feedback is always greatly appreciated, but I'd be remiss if I did not say a huge thank you to TJ and Mike. Without them, this show would not have been possible. I did not know what to expect when we started this, but those guys, with the amount of games that they get to, their understanding of the game, their evaluations and analysis, outside the box thinking, I cannot thank those guys enough for what they brought to the show. Like I said, without them, this would not have been possible. So thank you to those 2 guys. And like I said, I hope we're back, God willing, doing this again next year. And hopefully it's better than it was this year, because we sure did have a lot of fun. So until next year, or until we run into each other, I hope everybody has a blessed rest of their spring and summer, and we'll talk soon.